welcome to this special evening. Exactly a year ago today, my mom lost her soulmate. I lost my biggest fan and my father. My husband lost his friend and guide. My children lost their doting nana. We are all here today because we loved him. We are here to celebrate his life, the art, the architecture, and the design of a man who lived life on his own terms. His quest for beauty and perfection. His office when I was growing up was in the house, as many of you know, in Madhumalti. There was a door connecting the office and the home. I would sit for hours after school in the mezzanine office room with drafting paper and colorful markers, sketching away, trying to emulate my dad. My kids, especially Gayatri, spent hours during our trips to Ahmedabad in her Nana's office. I realized this when Madhav and Meera were born, that he had saved all those beautiful sketches. He used one of Gayatri's drawings, digitally enlarged it, and printed it on a canvas and used it as a wallpaper on the twins' room wall. He was all heart. A young man from a simple family who grew up in Dhalnipur, a self-made man who imbibed ideas from all he worked with and who influenced him, and created his own style that was unparalleled. As one architect colleague wrote in a condolence message to us, he is someone we respected and admired for the way he carved and demonstrated a completely different path for professionals in Ahmedabad and India. My memories of childhood are filled with mom, me, and papa on our road trips in his Fiat, on rainy monsoon days and singing the Gujarati folk songs and eating dal vadas. My memories are filled with weekends of listening to music from Bhimsen Joshi to Joan Baez, reminiscing about his Boston days, his stories about Gropius and working at the TAC, and joking and laughing with Nalin Kaka and Malti Foy about so many things. And most of all, seeing the beautiful relationship he shared with mom and being surrounded by his love. Last year in October 2020, after some convincing, I managed to have him start the process of a book on his work. I asked Kaivan Mehta, an architect and a curator of architectural exhibitions, who has also written books, to help me with this process. Papa had his first and only conversation on Zoom with Kaivan in October. In Jan 2021, I reconnected with Kaivan, and in our conversation about how to take this book forward, I mentioned the exhibition that Papa had already planned for March 2020. Kaivan suggested we re-narrate the exhibition and open it for viewing. I now call Kaivan to take this forward. Thank you all for being here.
Good evening, everyone. And once again, welcome to this beautiful and special evening. And it is also the coming to end of a beautiful, beautiful week that we've had with this special exhibition that Amrita mentioned. I should begin by thanking Amrita and Mamta ma'am for getting me involved in this project because it has given me an opportunity, not in person, sadly, but through the work of somebody to encounter a person who clearly appears to be absolutely not only a fascinating person, but somebody who was full of life somebody who was full of joy, and somebody who celebrated happiness in everything that was around him. And that is what gave us the title of this exhibition, of the idea of happiness in architecture, the happiness of architecture. As Amrita mentioned, this exhibition is a first step towards a research on a book on the life and work of Jitendra Mistry. But also, this exhibition is interesting twofold for me personally, but I think everybody who has had the opportunity to view it and everybody who will be able to view it in the future through the catalog as well as the short film that we've made on it. At one level, this is an exhibition that enters into a professional life. It enters into the work of a person. And this is clearly going to be a person that I'm going to know only through his work. And that makes that journey very, very interesting for me. Besides sort of the anecdotes and stories that I've already been hearing about him. In a sense, this was a professional exhibition to try and understand what did design or architecture mean for a person like Jitendra Mistry. And clearly, as the quote that Amrita mentioned, it is a life that tells us something about the history of architecture in this country in the last few decades, different from what we've learned in books and textbooks. So every such biography, every such body of work opens up new ways of understanding history. And people like Jitendra Mistry force us to understand and look at history differently and literally on their own terms, as is the subtitle also of this exhibition. The second very important aspect of this exhibition, which was also a first for me, but very interesting combination, was that this exhibition was also designed as a memorial. It was a certain kind of a tribute, and one had to tread very, very carefully to sort of remember a person in the right light and in the right spirit. And I hope one has been able, or I have been able, to do that in the correct way. In many ways, this exhibition was an experience, and the design was drawn on a structure that would make the exhibition accessible to many different people. And I think that has what has helped us reach a large audience through this exhibition. At some level, through the curatorial structure, but also through the text, people from the world of design, connoisseurs of art, people interested in design, art, and architecture would be able to understand, look into, dive into some of the theoretical ideas, some of the historical questions that lead this exhibition. At another level, the exhibition was also carefully designed to read visually. The different objects coming together, the different visual mediums coming together, the different sort of systems of color coming together, systems of putting furniture or architecture or building, whether it is in a painting, whether it is a Bhupen Thakkar painting, or whether it is a Pichwai painting, or whether it is a diorama that Jitendra Mistry himself had designed for this exhibition. All these different mediums would visually draw the audience, the spectator, into the exhibition and be able to enjoy it. And one of the key things that I've realized as a person who's worked on earlier biographies, it's always been at the back of my mind, but it became much more sharper when I worked on this exhibition, that I had to begin understanding his work on his own terms. I may have my questions as a historian, as a writer, as an architect, but I had to ask my questions through the ways of thinking that were displayed and exhibited in his works by Jitendra Mistry himself. I hope that all of y'all who had the chance to see this exhibition enjoyed it as much as we have learned from many responses that people enjoyed this exhibition. But I also invite you for a short film that we have done, which does a walk through the entire exhibition. And for all those who were not able to be here with us in Ahmedabad the last week and see this exhibition, this in a way will also help you not only look at the exhibition, but literally have a sneak peek, have an entry into the work and life of this person that we have met this evening to sort of celebrate, enjoy, and feel that sense of vibe, love, and design. Thank you very much. Mahavir, can we play the film, please? Thank you. You can start. So welcome to the office and studio of Jitendra Mistry, which is also the site and home to the exhibition The Happiness of Architecture. Jitendra Mistry had imagined and planned this exhibition himself. It was to be opened on 21st of March 2020 when the pandemic suddenly hit, and in a few months we also lost Jitendra Mistry to the pandemic. The research process to write a book on Jitendra Mistry had already started, and in a chance conversation with Amrita Somaya, I realized that there was this exhibition planned by him. So as a part of my research process, I decided to revive this exhibition and replay it, redo it with the intentions of Jitendra Mistry, but also now inserting a curatorial intent into this exhibition. Jitendra Mistry has had a very curious and a very interesting practice. He began as a modernist and over a period of time developed a keen and a deep interest in traditional and regional architecture, something that he really pursued with great passion and with a lot of hard work. And I think this journey has been intriguing, and it is something that we want to discover or we want to explore in this exhibition. For him, it is not a binary to be a modernist or a traditionalist, but for him, all of it is a continuation in the pursuit of beauty. All of it is a continuation in understanding aesthetics. And I think that is the approach that I have taken as a key curatorial idea to look at this exhibition, and through this exhibition explore his work. This exhibition is a memorial and an exploration to the life and work of Jitendra Mistry. The Happiness of Architecture was a title that we imagined for this exhibition, because every time I heard stories about how Jitendra Mistry worked on site, in the workshop, in his studio, there was always that element that he was very joyous. As long as he was around architecture, as long as he was around designed objects, he was in his workshop. And I think this element of joy or this element of happiness is something that was very important to understand and explore as to how design objects, whether it is an artisan or whether it's an architect, bring a sense of joy to life and also celebrate life in certain ways. So in fact, we begin the exhibition with a sculpture that was designed by Jitendra Mistry. He designed this as a welcome sculpture for the exhibition that he had imagined. And in fact, it is an assembly or it is an assemblage of the different elements from the workshop. So one key element to understand about Jitendra Mistry's studio, that it was a studio combined with a workshop. Now coming from a very early Bauhaus tradition, he worked with Walter Gropius at some point. And I think that idea that a studio and a workshop, the space of design and the space of making on the drawing board or making in the working bench of an artisan, are both interrelated projects. And which is why what you see in this sculpture, in this assembly sculpture, in this installation, is actually the different elements of a column taken out of a traditional building and assembled and deassembled here. He was very excited about how traditional architecture always works on a key of parts. And when you dismantle the key of parts, you really understand what has been the driving force of traditional architecture. When you walk further, you come across a second installation. There are two installations which are actually dioramas. And when I earlier heard about this exhibition, the most interesting thing were these dioramas. The dioramas really come from a 19th century imagination of architecture, where very often in expositions like the Crystal Palace or the Chicago exposition, these kind of dioramas from different parts of the world would be brought and assembled to expose to audiences the different kinds of architecture and design that happens all across the world. And it's interesting that he had decided to do two dioramas. The diorama of the Koteshwar Haveli, which is one of the very early examples where he actually salvages or brings home an old heritage structure and rebuilds it and reconstructs it for a new piece of architecture, for a new building. And that's why we begin with this diorama that is in the landscape, in the garden of his studio and workshop. So after these two welcome elements, these two assemblages in the garden, we move into the studio space where we've actually converted the studio space into an exhibition space. So it doubles as a space of work and a space of exposition. In this small entrance room, we actually begin by small glimpses into the life and work of Jitendra Mistry, where you see him with his wife and lifelong working partner Mamta Mistry. You also see him receiving an award or working with a very important client of a very, very important project, which also developed into a friendship, which is with Shriji of Udaipur. This space also sort of tells you about the key events, the key moments, which shapes Under a Mango Tree to begin with and later becomes Studio 3. The very early days when he realized that if he had an interest in traditional architecture, he had to work very closely with artisans. And the collaboration was not about collaborating project by project, but the collaboration was about setting up the workshop himself. And which is why the workshop and the team of artisans are very, very important in his working process. In this room and the next, we really explore the two twin facets of Jitendra Mistry. Jitendra Mistry the designer and Jitendra Mistry the collector. The workshop, the idea of collecting and the idea of designing were actually a trio, a simultaneous persuasion which helped him develop the process that he was working with. Collecting, whether he was collecting old heritage architecture structures or he was collecting works of art, and he really did not distinguish between a modern work of art or a pre-modern work of art. He collected objects, whether they were textiles, whether they were works of art, whether that was furniture, as a constant way of developing what I would call a library of design ideas, a library of aesthetic questions. And literally what you see here is you see some of his early drawings. And I think this working with the hand is very, very important in his life, as it would have been for his generation. But I think the way he had an interest in workshop artisans and the way you see some of his early rendered drawings, there is a huge investment in the question of working with the hand. And simultaneously you see pieces of furniture also. So you may see a tracing where he's exploring the idea of ornamentation that is to be used for a door. Here you see him sort of designing a very early cinema theatre which could have been the precursor to the multiplexes of today. But also you see these pieces of furniture, some of them collected, salvaged, repaired, while some of them are designed as fresh pieces based on the designs of some things that he collected. So studying some of the collected pieces, he would develop newer designs, but using the same questions of aesthetics, using the same questions of materiality, ornamentation, etc. So it's interesting to see a Corbusier image and to see a painted piece of furniture or a detailed ornamentation study for a door coming simultaneously in an office or in a library. As we move into this space, we explore that further. And we explore that more precisely with the second diorama. And this again to recall this very interesting way that he decided to display some of his works, recalling the 19th century diorama, where the Udaipur palace restoration work, rebuilding work and transformation of the Udaipur palace into a hotel was a very, very important project for him. And I think that was a project that also brought him at the interface of what is contemporary and what is traditional, and how do you blend the questions of contemporary and the history. So simultaneously here, two other important pieces are from his collection, the Pichwai, where this was a classic way in which a plan of a city, a plan of a building, a plan of a neighborhood would be drawn in a very different technique from the Western perspective technique. But at the same time, right across the room, you have one of India's finest artists and his work, which is Bhupen Khakkar. And one would be able to see how this is a unique work that we get from the artist Bhupen Khakkar. The sense of the tablecloth and the folded clothes, and the sense of a landscape that is sort of far behind. Simultaneous to this, you see a drawing like this. You see a drawing of the Karnavati hotel that he did, and how sort of drawing a reflection
would sort of be as important to drawing the main building. So in a curious and a clear way, you see this engagement with different mediums, whether it is the medium of the diorama, whether it is the medium of painting a pitchwai, whether it is the medium of a modern artist, whether it is the medium of drawing architecture, whether it is the medium of measure drawings like this extract that we have from the Eklingji measure drawings, or he would go around collecting pieces like this, which is a curious assembler of a religious tableau, but a religious tableau that is sort of developed in the contemporary, sitting right in front. This is how it has existed in his office. This was not shaped for the exhibition. It sits right in front of another very modernist abstract painting. So in this room, one has tried to sort of showcase the melange that you find in his library, the melange that you find in his archives, while simultaneously we've also sort of tried to focus, at least with one project, with the Udaipur project, a detailed investment. If you see the before and after projects of photographs of Udaipur, you realize the kind of hard work that must have gone in taking a traditional building that was in shambles, that was broken down or demolished in many ways, and had to be resurrected for a contemporary program, but keeping the traditional aesthetics in place. And from here, if you sort of peep into his office, which is what the exhibition does, it allows you to look into his office for simply 2 or 3 reasons. You get to see his library, and I think it's fascinating if you get a sense of start looking out. So you will find Victor Horta, but you will find Manu Parekh, and you will find detailed books on Bombay and Ahmedabad. So you see his interest, the way he sort of developed a library for his interest, where questions of ornamentation, materiality, metal work were simultaneously with his interest in the city. And in that sense, you also have very interesting collections of old photographs or old drawings of cities like Surat and Ahmedabad. This studio building designed by Jitendra Mistry is as much as a part of the exhibition as much as it houses the exhibition. I believe these were storerooms that he opened up to get his studio and design team working here. And at any point in time when you're in this studio, you're in touch with the landscape, you're in touch with the garden. The sense of the garden between a studio and a workshop, I find it an interesting concept. The garden has always been, whether it's a private garden or a public garden, it has always been a place of pleasure, but also a place of people coming together. And to have this landscape and nature within which your studio sits is something that contributes very interestingly to the process of thinking, and also to the process of understanding how design and human or design and nature come together. Literally, the next room that you see in this studio actually is where the workshop and the studio come together. The design process and the hand process, the mind process actually come together. You not only see pieces of finished furniture here, but right across you see the Siddhi Sayyad Jali door, a classic piece from Ahmedabad that was used by him to actually design a door. You see other pieces of furniture, whether it's a chair, but you also see items that were collected by him. A small model of the Siddhi Sayyad Jali or a similar arch that he would collect, or a piece from the workshop that was brought in here. Or when you come here, you not only see the different ways in which the craftsman works, the craftspeople work in the workshop, what it involves, the sort of the bodily engagement of the craftsman, and at the same time a series of sketches that he would develop, a diary of sketches which were used as a working process. So the working process is simultaneously exhibited with the finished pieces of design, and this relationship between what you get as a product and what is the process, and literally, as I keep repeating, the bodily process in which the whole body of the architect or the designer is involved in the production, is something that has been fascinating and something that one has tried to bring about in this exhibition. Yes, sir. So we walked down this path through the garden, as I keep saying, the garden of plants, but also the garden of ideas, that literally connects the space of the studio and the space of the workshop which we are entering. And as we walk down, You see a facade from an old salvaged building there, you see another facade from a heritage building here, and these objects literally occupy the landscape. So like the dioramas, these constructed and repaired objects also occupy the landscape, much in the sense of the picturesque. The picturesque where historical objects were planted in a garden for pleasure. Here they sort of combine the notion of exhibition, the notion of thinking, the notion of recovering objects, and that's what makes this garden interesting, including the sort of the Chandarbo that you see above, again one of the collected objects of Jitendra Mistry. But this coming at the crossroads, in that direction you have the yard which we will visit, here you have the workshop, there you have the studio, and at this crossroads the Chandarbo, which actually creates a temporary ritual space. You see it sort of hanging above your head, connecting these three important aspects of the studio and Jitendra Mistry's practice. So let's move into the workshop and see how it became a part of his design process. In my understanding, the studio was connected to the workshop in two very important ways. This workshop is a karkhana, the space of work where hands, feet, eyes, body, your entire physical self is involved in making objects, opening up objects, understanding their design, remaking new design. But at the same time, what you realize in this workshop, it had a twin function. It was also the space of collection. And as I say, it was the encyclopedia and the dictionary of Jitendra Mistry, because many architectural collected objects or large pieces of furniture that he went scouting around, literally like a flaneur of the city, went around places collecting these objects and bringing these objects inside these workshops, where, as I keep saying, they become the encyclopedia and the dictionary to develop new ideas in design and to understand this relationship between the object of design, the purpose of making, and the purpose of design in human life in that sense. Once you go inside, the sense of what I have been speaking as to what it means to be within collected objects, within designed objects, between half broken objects, between farmas, it's very sort of brings the question of design alive. And I think one has not realized what it has meant historically, whether it's the Renaissance studio, whether it's the Mughal atelier, where all these spaces always had the space of making and the space of designing connected. And when you're inside these workshops, when you're between sort of doors or grills or metal pieces or workmen working or unfinished pieces and finished pieces and drawings, you really get a sense as to how the question of a physical or a bodily engagement with design influences the design process very differently than thinking of design through the space of a studio, through the space of a drawing board. So this combination is something that is very important, one should pay attention to. So as you will realize in this workshop, it's very interesting, you keep landing up on these kind of collected objects. At the same time, there are many templates of design developed or produced. You see woodwork happening in one corner, you see kind of silver plate work happening in another corner, you see metal work happening in another corner. And this engagement with objects, a workshop is also a museum, and I think we've never really realized that this notion of what a museum does to design and what a workshop does to design is an area that one can actually explore and think about. And in this very preliminary research that I've done on Jitendra Mistry, it's really sort of opened up my mind to the question of understanding the space of work, the workshop. The final place where this exhibition comes to a closure is actually this yard that you see. I call it the yard, but I also call it the exposition. It was also very crucial in the way Jitendra Mistry had imagined the original exhibition, where he wanted to display a variety of some of his important furniture design pieces. And here the design process is making new but making new involves a study of the old, involves repair, involves rebuilding, and I think the range that you see here becomes very, very important. And again, like the diorama, this space and this design was very interesting for me, because somewhere he takes design back to the early 19th century imagination, where the notion of trade, the business of design, the work of design, the craftsmanship of design, they all come together in the exposition, they all come together in the yard. So as much as a question of aesthetics, but the tools of the trade, the tools of business, the tools of market, the tools of workshop, they literally come in this kind of an exposition model, in which these pieces of furniture are displayed, but they are also displayed again amidst the facades that are sort of salvaged, recovered facades that are actually waiting to go back into certain new projects. In fact, some of these are already designated to certain new projects, which within 3 months these facades will move and go there. So the yard as a space of changing pieces of furniture all the time is something that is very interesting, and the exhibition in that sense closes where these key elements or key ideas of business, beauty and work come together.
Thank you everyone for patiently viewing through my voice, but I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen of the exhibition and some of the thoughts and ideas that I've shared, which I have to mention, a lot of this has come from many conversations with the family, obviously Amrita, Somaya, but also other members of the family who I've only briefly encountered right now, and would be sort of talking to many more in the process of research, but also the team that has been at the office and has been helping me go through his work, go through the archive. Mamta ma'am has been sort of leading me in certain directions that she saw as important as a lifelong working partner with Jitendra Mistry. And also I would really sort of like to thank and appreciate the I would like to thank and appreciate the entire team at Studio 3 and Jitendra Mistry Architects for helping me put this entire exhibition together. I would like to welcome four very important and close associates of Jitendra Mistry, who will be sort of sharing their association and their memories of this man that all of us have been talking about. I'll just briefly mention the four of them and we'll hear them soon. We have first Samveg Lalbai, who's been a family member, but has also been his client. We have Snehal Shah, an architect. Many of us in Ahmedabad and even in India know of him, but he's also had his very early and then continuing association with Jitendra Mistry. Then we have Samir Somaya, who's been his son-in-law, but also his client. And as he always jokingly says, that the gift that came with his marriage was actually the relationship and friendship with his father-in-law. And finally, we have Jigar Patel, who has been an integral part of the Jitendra Mistry design studio. So I welcome these four people, four friends to sort of come and share their thoughts this evening with us. Thank you.
Jitendra left us a year ago. We miss him very much. He was a wonderful husband to my sister Mamta Ben, father to my niece Amrita, and grandfather to her children. He was a very warm family man. In all our family outings, functions, parties, or get-togethers, he was at the center stage with sharp sense of humor, holding everyone together, and we all used to have a great time. A very warm friend to all of us and others. He was a very versatile architect. an artist by soul. He liked good things, all sorts of art, and including performing arts. So we could see that in his creations, be it a commercial building, residential house, garden. He designed excellent things for my daughter's wedding in the garden. He didn't follow a particular style. He was very versatile, from palaces to modern houses to havelis, all sorts of things. He had a lot of, he used to put his passion into it. Spent quite a few hours with him at his office, and we used to finish work in 15 seconds but chit chat for about a couple of hours. I knew a lot of things from him. We will miss him so much, but in my opinion, he survives in Mamta Bin, Amrita, and the children. And wherever he has gone, he definitely must have gone to a better place, and he will be blessing us from there. Pranam. Jitendra.
Good evening. It is a privilege, Mamta Ben, Amrita Ben, to say a few words on Jitendra Mistry. Jitu Bhai has always been very energetic, in a way proactive and enthusiastic architect. I've had many encounters with him since late 70s. My interaction with him at various stages of my life portrayed them, and I would like to talk not only of his work, his way of doing things, but also his life in a way. First, as a student at CEPT University, Ahmedabad, where he taught in late 70s with total openness, because he had come from US and he had seen how things are done, constantly trying to teach and at the same time make us learn from his very, very varied experiences, both professionally and academically. He had then returned from his education abroad, as we know. He had worked with Gropius at the time. So with this being said, his feet were actually on Indian soil. We had many memorial studios with him and many juries where he was my juror in the School of Architecture. His comments were always encouraging and supportive for my project designs. I vividly remember that he would take a pencil and draw over the sheets instantly to explain his viewpoint. Something we had not seen before with any other professors previously. As one says, drawing is our only main tool as an architect, and this can be explained very well with one's point of view. Of course, many people follow this practice while teaching, and including myself, I also straight away take a pencil and draw it. I just want to show you some sketches, not while he was teaching, but how he would do and doodle. This the sketch, which is he was just trying to work out a plan. Next. That he would try to work out a detail. Then he would go over with black and red pencil. Next. How we would make a grid, make a plan, work out a spatial system with structure, clarity, and add all the functional requirements. And one more, please. He would then show how the plan works with center and the periphery. This is what we talk in architecture a lot, that when anybody enters, it's like a picture restaurant. When you enter in a space, you not only see just an object, but you see things in perspective. Next one, please. And then you can see how he has tried to create doodles, but at the same time, try to form his ideas about architecture. Now, this is what he was doing while he was teaching us. Can we go over those, please? Now, after my graduation, and as a practicing architect in late 80s, when he was my senior professional colleague, we met several times at the airport. While traveling, at times he used to stop at my office. He would not go straight to home. He would say, "Okay, let's go, let's have a cup of coffee at your office," and also at the end next day send some vegetables and salads from his farm. But we also visited his house many times for those sumptuous dinners, and he was a perfect host, always careful of everyone's presence. During the meeting, we used to exchange our views on architecture, and he appreciated my work without any apprehension. Recently, during the opening of one of our projects, main site at Kumbharia, he had paid a special visit. He very warmly gave me a hug and also appreciated our efforts in architecture, which was very modern, rarely seen among architects. Usually, architects don't like to appreciate an architect. Usually, unlike Jitubhai, the senior architects do not encourage junior architects, but he still admired how open he was with younger colleagues. Lately, as a colleague, only a couple of years ago, we worked together for a project for Cadila Pharmaceuticals, state-of-art guest house. Usually two architects working together, I'm sure you all know, always ends up with a bitter taste. Instead, we came closer due to his openness and charm. He understood our firm's philosophy and without any ego, considered the same while designing his interior interventions and related works in the project. During that project, we met several times and traveled together to the site. Being the site was a little away, half an hour and a half away, we talked about many things at the time. Often his talks would center around, of course, first comes his grandchildren and how much pleasure they gave him. He would talk at length about his life and experiences with great fervor. The politics was also at the center of his talks. And in all this, his knowledge was truly impeccable. I would always remember those moments with Jitubhai as a teacher, a senior colleague, and recently as a fellow professional. At the last, I just would like to say something very nice little story of my days in SEP when I was a student. I would like to share the story with you. Many years ago, during our college times, whenever our juries were ended, we had to celebrate. Having no other avenues in late 70s to cool ourselves, the movies were the only and obvious choice. Usually one decides the movie based on the name, story, actors, star cast, director, but we at times used to decide that based on the theater experience rather than the movie itself. And that choice was the Dipali cinema. Dipali cinema was designed by Jitubhai. And we would go to Dipali cinema not to see the movie, but to see the theater and have a good experience. I mean, how many could stay awake after the 4-5 consecutive nights that you work in SEP University? You hardly probably see the movie, but at least you have a nice experience with the theater itself. So Jitubhai, after his experience with Gropius and also being a firm believer of urban design reforms for Ashram Road, had designed Dipali Theatre. It had an excellent welcoming plaza, and we will probably have it in the catalog, and you'll see it, a welcoming plaza in front, open to public. The theatre on the periphery were designs like the Toblerone, like a tuck like this, on the other sides. Whereas this theatre was carved out, a box where one could use the semi-open spaces. Dipali had a very nice coffee snack counter because there was a carved out space, and we could sit around the fountain in the plaza. The plaza worked wonderfully, creating an urban intervention, being shaded, having a fountain on one side, and of course, with posters of heroes and heroines on the other side. The cinema also had good seats and a good leg space and the perfect audio system. What more one could ask? But at the same time, where were fountains in India, in Ahmedabad that time? Not much in the urban spaces. I also would like to mention that here, he was ahead of his time, and it is only now that in 2020, today, that Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has proposed this very road, this entire Ashram Road, as creating an urban plaza on Ashram Road as CBD, Central Business District. Same line as that of Jitubhai's proposal way back when he created Dipali Theatre. I'm sure Jitubhai would be very happy wherever he's up there. I'm sure that finally he sees that Ashram Road has been designed or has been proposed similar way he had considered way back many years ago. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amrita Bain and Mamta Bain.
I met my father-in-law, Papa, at the Oberoi. Amrita said I disarmed him or charmed him by giving her a gift of silver earrings. And she said that's what made him accept me immediately. Well, it was a wonderful journey. When I came to meet the family in Ahmedabad, I met them all and I saw his work. I saw this beautiful guest house that he had built next to the main house. I was astounded. It made me reflect on the beauty of our tradition and that it could be built even today. Modern, traditional, not sacrificing beauty. I was an engineer. This was a new world for me. But I understood that there was no trade-off, that beautiful architecture is neither out of place nor out of date. And as Kaiwan joked, I did think, yes, marry Amrita and get father-in-law free. I really appreciated his sensitivity, his attention to detail, and his relentless pursuit of perfection. A couple of years later, I saw a Haveli he had built, Koteshwar, that Kaiwan showed in his presentation. I was so amazed. I asked him, Papa, someday I'll ask you to build it for me. And then in 2008, I actually did ask him to build it for me. And then began my personal relationship with him as a client. And I still remember Amrita was worried. A father-in-law and a son-in-law working together. The relationship may change. A family relationship of father-in-law and son-in-law should not get substituted by a client and service provider. I would say it never got substituted. We developed a new dimension. Instead of having a one dimension, wonderful relationship of a son-in-law and father-in-law, we added a new dimension to it, and that was to work together, to dream up spaces together, to co-dream them, and to imagine, and then for him to understand, or for me to understand, or him to understand, and put them in practice. Then went to him, Amrita and I, and talked to him about Kitab Khana. And I actually gave him the song from a Hindi movie, Mausam. And I said, Papa, dil dhoondta hai phir wahi fursat ke raat din. Kya aap wo mahal ko khada kar sakte hain? Can you resurrect such a sense of timelessness, a sense of just being there, losing yourself? And that's what he did. I still remember how beautifully he did it. And if there is one reason why we met Kaiwan to do this, is because I think he believes the same, and he comes to Kitab Khana a fair amount. And I think he actually accomplished that as an oasis in the city of Mumbai. My relationship with him as a greater, deeper guide further happened as a third dimension after my father passed away in 2010. And we developed a still closer bond as he became also my guide as we went along. I asked him, we run an education, a university in Mumbai, and I asked him whether he could helped me create a sense of campus. There were a lot of buildings in a large piece of land. And I asked him, can you create a sense of community? And he worked on that. And Vidya Vihar today also is an oasis, a sense of timelessness, an aesthetic sense, a sense of beauty. It's also the built space, it's also the green space, it is the garden space. As mentioned by Samveg Mama, he was also extremely versatile. I asked him whether he could retrofit our hospital building. I was quite concerned actually, if he had no knowledge of hospital architecture, could he actually do this? But he worked with us and he did a tremendous job understanding hospital architecture and creating a very nice space for what we call a super specialty right now. And then we worked with him to create our College of Physiotherapy building. One in which, when you enter, you get a sense of being free as an individual from Mumbai, but also as a building, being free of Mumbai itself. As a sense, we would say, Mumbai mein rehkar Mumbai mein kaid kyun rehna? And as soon as you enter that space, you feel neither you are in Mumbai, you feel healthy as soon as you enter. And then you also wonder whether you are in Mumbai itself as a building, because in what he has created, you feel that you are free of that place. His versatility were continued. I asked him whether he would help build a sports center for me. And that was, I have known my father-in-law. I know he used to do yoga every day. But I just remember when he saw his young son-in-law long ago, when I had hair on my head. And when he saw me playing squash, he says, may I join you? He was really not good at it. But then he has designed a marvelous building which will be ready in the next few months. A building that doesn't impose on the campus. It melts into the campus. It gives a sense of freedom. It merges with the campus. And I think it's incredible that he also helped us create that. And finally, in art, I saw in all he did a sense of an appreciation of all things beautiful. My father has collected a wonderful collection of art. And I used to tell him that I would love to have a museum on our campus alongside a college of fine art. And he said, let me design it for you. And he did a lovely design, an extremely modern building. And at the end of it, he said, he also volunteered, to my wonderful, pleasant surprise, that he would also put a lot of his art collection in there. And I think that was really wonderful in how he understood, and as Kaivan said, a sense of workmanship, a sense and appreciation of art, and a sense of architecture, a sense of space for ultimately being accessible to one and all. And that's what he helped us do. Snailbai did make one statement that he appreciated other architects. This is something I always remarked. He always saw work which I was doing with others, and he always only spoke wonderfully about them. And I always reflected on that, how encouraging and pleasant and appreciative he was of the work other architects in his field had done. And it was wonderful to see that. I would like to end by saying that I really like one of Sahir Ludhianvi's sayings. I think it is very apt for him when it was said that Mana ke zameen ko gulzar na kar sake, kuch khar to kam kar gaye jidhar se guzre the hum. Yes, he couldn't make, it, any place he walked, he brought beauty to it and a great appreciation. Thank you.
Hello, respected all. Good evening. I'm Jigar Patel, and I have been working with Jitendra sir for the last 7 years. First of all, I would like to thank all of you who joined us in this beautiful experience called it the happiness of architecture. It's great pleasure to have your presence here, and I would like to take this opportunity to talk about my unforgettable journey with my Guruji. Although he is my boss by profession, but the relationship we share is far beyond any regular employer employee relationship. I deeply respect him as my best friend and more importantly, as my mentor, my Guruji. Here, I would like to share some of his greatest qualities that inspire me the most. Like, he always want to give a chance to youngsters to grow. One fine example is right in front of you. Whatever I have achieved in my short journey so far is all because of Guruji. Another thing that I have noticed about him is that he is extremely passionate about his work and enthusiastic about his life. Even at the age of 84, he could put many young men to shame with his diligence towards his work. He never felt tired of his work, nor did he ever procrastinate. I mean, word like ho jayega, kal karenge were not even there is in his dictionary. One more thing that we all should learn from him is to be grounded and respect each person regardless of their position or background. Despite being the industry for so many years, he never hesitated from taking ideas and suggestions from his subordinates and even the intern and fresher. He always said that art is not a knowledge. uh, Everyone is an artist in their own manner. For him, architecture is not just his work, but the way of living or more like breathing. A person can get tired of their work, but they can't get tired of breathing. So we all miss him with all those moments he shared with us, and he will always live in our heart. Thank you once again for your time and presence. That will be from my end.
Thank you, everyone. Uh, very happy to digitally share with all of you all the small catalog that we have put together uh, for this exhibition. Obviously, the bigger book will take its time and be there soon, but with all of us and share much more, having all the intensity that many people have spoken of this evening. But this catalog is a memory, but also a way of sharing this exhibition once this exhibition has closed this morning. It's a small booklet that we have put together with some basic text and a broadly annotated photo essay, which tries to bring some of the ideas of the exhibition together. But also, again, a very important thing is to sort of visually treat ourselves to the way he inhabited some of these spaces in which the exhibition happened, and that was very important. How did he inhabit space? And as I mentioned earlier, the exhibition actually had some corners that existed earlier, and then they were mixed and matched with some of the more exhibition curated works, compositions, etc. So that's what the catalog will share. And may I request the team to play the catalog, and we'll briefly go through the entire catalog. Thank you.
Thank you all. I know for some of you it's very early in the morning. In the US, I know Kaka is there, and I know all my cousins, and everyone is here with me. So thank you all for being here. I can see Crystal from Germany, and I can see so many people here who loved him and who miss him so much. So thank you all. I cannot thank Kaiwan enough for curating this exhibition, a small little insight into my dad's work and life and the way he created beauty. And I know that we will put together a book and something larger in the days to come. I would like to thank Papa's team, who from day one have been there for us. They came and spoke to my mother maybe just a few days after Papa's passing and committed themselves and dedicated themselves to completing all the works that he had ongoing. And they have been the integral part of putting this whole exhibition together with Kaiwan. Piyush Bhai, Jigar Bhai, Indramal, the whole team at the workshop, the whole team at Mistry Associates, you all have been amazing. My mom has been the backbone, and without her support and her love, this would not have been possible. She has stayed so strong throughout this year. It has been a very, very difficult year. So just want to appreciate her. I know she doesn't like to be mentioned, and I know it's very difficult for her today's evening. So thank you all for being here. And I hope that we can all meet soon and celebrate him and his life and his work and laugh at all the jokes that he used to crack and all the fun that he used to, just have us all laugh till we, anyway, can't say much more. Thank you all for being here. I know Gayatri is in America and she is here also with us, watching and celebrating her Nana. Thank you.